Hey everybody, welcome to a Wednesday webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we've got a great panel lined up to discuss how today's facility manager can help businesses meet sustainability objectives. And before I turn it over to Dean Stanberry, who will be moderating today's session, I'll go over a couple of housekeeping items. So as everybody's trickling in, please let us know where you're coming from in the chat so we can give you a shout out. And we'll also have a Q&A portion in the session. So drop your comments and your questions along as the panelists are doing their discussion, and we'll answer as many of those as we can in the Q&A session. With that, let me turn it over to Dean Stanberry, who's going to moderate today's session. Dean?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning and welcome, everybody. I'm honored to moderate today's session. I'm Dean Stanberry. I'm IFMA's second vice chair of the Global Board of Directors. And today's topic is of particular interest to me because I'm both a FM professional and passionate about sustainability. So these are two things that are close to my heart. So let me go ahead. Let's go to the first slide, and so I can introduce our panel for today. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, first up we have Annick Villeneuve. Annick is coming to us live from Paris, France. Annick is the Vice President of Real Estate Segment and Strategic Partnerships for Schneider Electric. For more than 20 years, Annick has helped customers worldwide achieve their sustainability goals and maintain operational flexibility and efficiency while creating buildings that offer better occupant experiences. Leading a global team of sales, marketing, and solutions architect, Annick is responsible for both the success of the Smart Real Estate Solutions and Services segment, as well as the Autonomous Buildings practice. Prior to joining Schneider Electric, she worked with industry pioneers, including Cisco and Sun Microsystems. Next, we have coming to us live from Copenhagen, Peter Ankerstern, my friend and colleague. Peter is the Chief Strategy Officer for PlanOn, and with more than 25 years of FM and workplace strategy with ISS, WeWork, and JLL, he is now responsible for strategy, strategic alliances, marketing, and communication at PlanOn. Peter has served on a number of advisory boards, including the Strategic Advisory Board at the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals. And he's an active member of the International Facility Management Association. And since 2016, he's been part of the board of directors, where he is currently serving as chair. And last but not least, we have Amy Butler coming to us from East Lansing, Michigan. And Amy is the Director of Sustainability for Michigan State University, leading the institution's sustainable platform utilizing the 4 pillars of success framework, which is campus, curriculum, community, and culture. Her unique ability to cultivate cross-discipline collaborations leverages sustainability to advance the university's mission of education, research, and service in solving global complex problems. Her academic experiences also includes directing an international advanced technology incubator to accelerate ideas to the market, as well as serving as the past chair of the Lansing Community College Alternative Energy Advisory Committee. Prior to her academic contributions, Amy provided 32 years of government leadership for the state of Michigan, directing their state energy office and environmental science and services division. She aligned the Michigan energy and environmental initiatives, promoting economic growth and job creation for both public-private partnerships and the state's transition to the knowledge economy. She was inducted into the Michigan Energy Hall of Fame for her accomplishments in energy programs and policy, and she is recognized as an international speaker on Michigan's energy policy, sustainability, and economic transformation policies. Next slide, please. Thank you. So today we're going to have some brief discussions from each of our panelists, and then we will go into some panel questions. Next slide. In order to put this into a little bit of context, new construction often gets most of the attention, and we talk about what's being done, and there's a lot of debate on whether or not new construction growth will slow down in a post-COVID era. But the real news is that the global building efficiency market has been growing steadily since about 2011. And if you consider it, we have far more existing buildings than we do new construction. So when we see here is that we've gone from 118 billion investment to 296 billion investment up through 2018. Next slide, please. So basically what we're looking at is that the cumulative global investment in commercial building energy efficiency retrofits will total almost $1 trillion between 2014 and 2023. So there is quite a market out there, and that's what we're going to talk about, sustainability and how can FMs help. So let me turn it over to Peter for the opening remarks, or excuse me, Anik for the opening remarks.
Thanks, Dean. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Happy to be with you and happy to discuss about this fantastic topic about sustainability. So let me start with one number, 124 billion square meter. And this number, it's a very good news. It means 20% growth for the next 8 years on the market. In that context, as facility manager, you have a key role to act on sustainability. And I propose that with my colleagues and with the panel that we will be able to discuss about sustainability and how collectively we can act on sustainability. As we all know, 2020 brought historic change to many industries and our own industry, building industry also. Many of us were asked from our customers to help them adapt and innovate in an environment that delivers both low occupancy issues for hotels and offices. Despite last day, I think that big IT companies start to share their planning and opening their office again with a strong planning, and high demand requirements for critical facilities, hospitals as an example. But even the challenges we experienced, analysts are predicting the building market will continue to grow. So there is a welcome news for us, for you, and we will have to manage and operate this market building. In parallel, investor pressure and CEO targets make sustainability impossible for real estate manager to ignore. So two options, we ignore or we are embracing this fantastic opportunity together as a facility manager too. Next slide, please. So buildings, you have globally 4 critical areas where the building industry must provide better outcome: sustainability, resiliency, efficiency, and people centricity. For today's session, we decided to focus on the first challenge, sustainability. And as Dean mentioned, sustainability and climate change will have a significant impact on all of us. Buildings are major contributors worldwide in carbon emission and costly waste. Buildings consume about 30% of the world's energy via their construction and operation. Buildings account for almost 40% of annual global greenhouse gas emission. The future of building construction and operation, both new and retrofit, is where the world will win or lose the battle against climate change. And we decide collectively to win. As a member of the building industry, we must do our part to course correct what we are seeing. It's super important. And when we talked about sustainable buildings, thanks for moving to these slides, what does success look like? Not the previous one, please. How we are driving towards this sustainability. Sustainable building will lower their carbon emission by 60% by 2040. You start to see that I love numbers because it's fact, and we need to measure our impact. They will run on renewable electricity and begin to influence the decarbonization of other industries. Some of you might be asking how we can achieve this. Slides, it's perfect, but this transformation already began. And we have tools, digital solutions, services, and also key partners like facility manager to make this happen. Next slide. two words I would like to highlight to these slides. And the first one is not easy for me to pronounce. I'm a French woman. Digitization and electrification. They are two trends that have opened the door for us to successfully deliver a better, more sustainable building and propel our industry to where it needs to be. When we talked about digitizations, with the Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, we can completely digitize and connect all the systems you have in the building and to start the journey on sustainability and get the information we need to build a smarter and a more sustainable future. Collecting the data, structuring the data, and how we will use this data to increase, improve, and achieve our sustainable goal. At the same time, electrification is driving a dramatic shift to more renewable sources for electrical generation. To summarize, electric builds a green future. The world is beginning to substitute electrical technology for combustion-fueled technologies, particularly in areas like space and water heating. This new, all-digital, all-electrical world gives us a foundation we need to create and retrofit buildings to be more sustainable. And what I propose is to move from a concept, a vision, a strategy, and a concrete example where we already started to implement and to see the positive effect. Next slide, please. So let me share with you what we already implemented and with the strong support of our facility manager in our headquarters for the region East Asia PAC in Schneider Electric. So I didn't choose an easy country, I chose Singapore, and you know how Singapore could be very challenging when we talked about climate and when we talked about heating and everything. So the context is very simple. We have decided to retrofit a 25-year-old building and turning into a sustainable building. Globally, the scope, 9-story, 18,000 square meters and around 1,200 people's employees in the building. Our objective was to achieve 100% carbon neutrality by 2020. How we do that? How we did that? 25% by design, 25% by operational efficiency, and the remaining 50% by switching to renewable energy. So the story is that you have around 5,000 connected points across 11,000 devices for monitoring, control, starting to do data analytics. We installed also panel solar to start the journey regarding the way that we will be able to cover the building monthly energy consumption and how we will be able to run 100% renewable energy. But in addition, and I'm sure that Ami will like this story, we increase the well-being and the user experience in the building. And the message here is as soon as we want to tackle the sustainable building targets, we mustn't compromise between sustainability, resiliency, efficiency, and people centricity, the user experience in the building. What was the role of our facility teams? Is as soon as you are designing and thinking about an open architecture, product, solution, digital solution, you have to run, to operate the building with tenant in and with the complexity of running the business. And the facility manager was the one who managed properly the transition and this acceleration of the digitalization and the electrification of the building by providing expertise, experience, and by being finally a sustainable business partner of Schneider. And it's super important to understand that this role of the facility manager is key about achieving the first goal I started to share. Just sharing my own experience on this building. I'm managing, as Dean mentioned, a global team, and I had the opportunity to host customer prospects in this building because we have an innovation hub in this building. And when I had the opportunity and when it makes sense for the customer or prospect, I organized a tour in the innovation hub by asking to our existing facility manager to share and to show how we operate the building with the technology. And it's the best impact to explain how a facility manager can contribute to achieve sustainable goals. So if I summarize my first introduction, I would like to say that some facility managers already start sustainability as a business winning strategy by offering baseline sustainability services. It's important to start to measure and to create the baseline by improving operation efficiency and also by realizing, so delivering operational saving that will contribute to ESG goals, who are normally on the top list of our leader when we talked about sustainability. So I'm going to pass it over to Peter, who is able to give you a little bit more details and his view on this transformation we see on the market.
Thank you, Annick, and thanks for this great sort of introduction and an overview of what's happening in the building industry and the renewed focus on sustainability that I think Schneider has been a very great example of driving forward. What I want to do in my section over the next 8 to 10 minutes, I just want to take a little bit closer look and a deep dive into the role of the facility manager and especially the role that we are going to play in driving the sustainability agenda for the organization that we serve. Next slide, please. So if you look at the facility manager over the last 40-year span, the role has changed significantly. And if you then look at the last 5 to 6 years, the role has expanded even more, especially over the last year during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's fair to say that the role of the facility manager has really been elevated. We have been front and center to the resolution around the crisis, getting people off the premises, off the workplace, into working from home. And now hopefully we are on the verge of bringing people back to the office or to the workplace or the campus, whatever it is that we are looking at here. And we are really, really critical to that role. There's still a perception that facility management is still largely a maintenance discipline, but it's so much more than that. We are involved in space management, IT infrastructure, energy management, occupancy experience or user experience, power management, supply chain, car park management, all these things that you can see on the screen. And I will now also add to that the role of sustainability management. Of course, some companies will have corporate social responsibility people that are responsible for this, or HSSE people, or even sustainability directors such as Amy here. But by and large, the facility manager will be absolutely critical to how we are managing sustainability when it goes to the built environment, and even to some extent when we are talking about working from home. Next slide, please. This is an example of a sustainable buildings checklist that comes from a US government agency. And when you look through the categories that needs to be addressed when rating a building for sustainability, it's hard to imagine that the facility manager will not be part of this and part of addressing these items. But it's also important that we as facility managers involved with just not being the data providers, but also the people that are coming up with the solutions and the implementation and managing this on a regular basis, and not only doing this for the sustainability report that some companies, some large companies will produce on an annual basis. Now, for the US agency in this example, the focus is really about optimizing energy performance, protect and conserve utilities, especially water, enhance indoor air quality, and then also reduce material impact. But this is one US agency. I think what we are seeing from Europe at the moment, especially with the energy directives coming out of the EU in Brussels, and now even more so with the EU Green Deal that is being developed at the moment, I think we will see a lot harder requirements for businesses that needs to be resolved when it comes to sustainability and environmental impact. Next slide. At IFMA, we did a survey last year over the summer where we asked 650 industry experts. 250 of those answered the questionnaire. It was called a Delphi survey on the future of work. And just to share a few of the highlights of that survey, 65% believe that the pandemic has increased awareness on the sustainability challenges, and this will lead to more sustainability practices in the future. 54% expect that budgets for efficiency improvement investments will increase while the real estate portfolio would shrink. And then 67% believe that the pandemic will change organizations and workers' practices, leading to more environmentally sustainable economic development as we move forward. So I think there's a lot of pressure in terms of what we expect, what the users of our buildings expect, what the business expects, but also legal requirements and political requirements that are coming out from the regulatory entities, whether it's in North America, or in the EU, or I'm sure there's going to be similar requirements in Asia-Pac and Middle East and Africa as we continue down this path. Next slide, please. I think what is really important here is that we, as facility managers, understand that we actually have a lot of tools at our disposal already to make really, really good decisions and create sound baselines in terms of monitoring, managing, and changing the environmental impact of the built environment that we are responsible for. Now, see, this is an example of energy. Now my light just went off. I have to move, yeah. So we most of us on a daily basis are using building management system, IWMS system, CAFM system of some sort, and that actually gives us a good baseline in terms of not only managing costs and creating that level of transparency, but also managing the sustainability or the environmental impact for this. You can add to that using sensors and other devices to measure the energy impact, other impacts that we're working on a daily basis. We're using building control systems, field controllers, and facility equipment, and it's becoming more and more intelligent that we can use that to provide this data lake that we can begin to analyze and work with. And then also using apps and mobile reporting tools, systems, smart building systems, connected devices, and dashboard and reporting to really go in and see how what our impact is, but also how we can manage and evolve and control this on an ongoing basis. I think we as facility managers and a lot of us have worked on this in this area for a long time already, but we have a lot of tools available to actually do this very effectively. We just need to put them to the right use. Next slide, please. And then I think we also need to be more strategic about the activities that we're working on and connect them into the purpose of the organization and the strategy of the business that we are serving, to create that strategic framework, understand the impact and how we can manage and control the physical systems, have the right monitoring solutions in place, and then provide the right analytics for the business and the senior level decision makers in the C-suite to provide that transformation organizational strategy into the connected smart building ecosystem that we have, to track and report the sustainability objectives, and then to leverage the insights to make better decisions and provide business outcomes. that we can then provide in terms of the recommended actions that we can see from a building management perspective, but also the operational intelligence and the targets and metrics that are needed, and even certifications if we want to go into well building standards, BRIM, LEED, Platinum standard, and those types of things. Also following the UN, the 17 UN environmental targets that was agreed in the Paris Agreement, and which government agencies are now working on. And I'm happy to say that the US now again are working on under the new administration. So if you go to the next slide, which I think is an important link to make here, is that we need, as facility managers, I think we also have a responsibility to link the environmental impact also to the human factor. Nobody wants to work in an environment that is too cold, or where you don't have the right airflow, or whatever we need to do in order to make the building efficient and run efficiently, but also make sure that the people centricity that Anik also talked about is front and center of what we do. Dr. Joe Allen from Harvard Business School has provided these 9 foundations of a healthy building, and I think that actually creates a good framework in terms of what are some of the low-hanging fruits that we can pick in order to provide that environmental impact, but also having the people focus in what we do. And if we don't want to sort of boil the ocean and start by changing everything in the building, we can start very simply by conducting a climate risk assessment, developing some action plans on reducing the CO2 footprint and also the occupant's footprint, and then implement and document the actions that are then linked to the human performance and experience of the workplace. I think that is a very logical, easy step to take that doesn't require huge investments for the organization, and are linked to something that we already know, which is the healthy building priorities that we have. But with that, I would like to, because it's really interesting on this panel that we have a sustainability director such as Amy. So it would be interesting to hear Amy's perspective on the Sustainability Act area and how FM and the FM team can implement some of these changes that we are talking about. So over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you today. Building on what Peter has already talked about in the role of committing to that strategy of the organization and providing for that transformation, we've already seen that facilities managers shoulder a huge responsibility for implementing sustainable facilities management practices. And in doing that, they have many challenges, such as trying to compete for budgets, priority for resources, and even educating those that are making the decisions on resources. But the work that facilities managers do also creates that foundation in many cases for meeting the broader sustainability goals and for achieving the mission of the organization. To be able to articulate this can mean the difference between those resources being met in meeting the goals and in how the mission gets accomplished. As businesses and higher education institutions, we all are faced with significant change and disruption in how we're doing business and to continue our operations. The facilities manager role is and will be key in how we build back better, support information, drive efficiencies, and still accomplish the mission of the organization. At our higher education institution, we actually define sustainability very broadly and on the basis of a framework of 4 pillars of success: campus, curriculum, community, and culture. The important aspect is, as we've talked about the facilities managers, much of their focus has been on that campus completion and how those operational efficiencies meet some of our sustainability targets, such as our reduction of greenhouse gases and our renewable energy portfolio, and even the efficiency that we provide power. However, facilities managers also play an important role in the foundation for what we do in meeting our mission of education and research. as well as our community outreach and creating the old culture throughout the institution for supporting sustainability. Buildings are often thought about from the energy efficiency operations. However, I want to introduce, and I'll provide a case study where being able to talk about how that building is built or operated supports the key mission of the institution becomes a key component and relates to the accomplishment of that mission. It's how you talk about what you do. And it's a different way to present it. But what it does is it helps those that are in the decision-making position to understand we're not just doing operations for operational efficiency and sustainability. We're doing these operations improvements because it improves the quality of education we're able to deliver. It changes the amount and the quality of the research that we're able to do. And it is expected and needed and demanded by our community and our stakeholders, including our students. From a business perspective, that same atmosphere is provided where the customers are demanding that sustainable practices of that company, looking beyond the buildings. However, the buildings are the foundation for being able to deliver that quality. So it's starting to change the dialogue in how facilities managers talk about what they do. And it's also changing who they have the conversations with and creating new partnerships, such as the IT for the smart campus or the smart building platform, or working, in our case, with academics. Who are the users of the building actually going to be? Often facilities managers are the management, the maintenance, but they're not the operators of the building, the people that use it. So building that coalition during the commission and even the design of the building can make a huge difference in meeting the mission of the organization. That also offers a chance to demonstrate innovation, and not only just in the technology, but also in this collaboration, and even in contracting or using new and innovative materials. In one case, at our campus, we've constructed or in the process of constructing the very first mass timber building. And we're able to tie that to our sustainable forestry program and our urban planning and design, where several students have been able to do research and write papers on it, and has now become a part of an actual course in teaching. So it shows that not only is the building being done in an innovative and creative way, it's also aligning with the academics of what we're teaching. So those students are the talent that you'll be able to hire in the future. Next slide. I'd like to use an example and give an example of how this has played out in our particular case in a rather novel approach. Our Broad College of Business, which has been a top 20 business college globally over the last 20 years, realized that they needed to upgrade their facility, and they wanted to build a pavilion that would be reflective or be a vision of and create a place that students not only deserve but needed, centered around team collaboration. They wanted this building to be able to attract the highest quality of talent, highest caliber in their researchers, and they also wanted it to be a place where businesses and students could interact together so that they could help influence the talent development that we're creating for them. So the building ended up being a 100,000 square foot pavilion where it would house 85% of the business courses and 100% of our graduate courses all in one place. From a technology standpoint, it included state-of-the-art IT in all of the different rooms and a career center where those businesses and students really is centric to the businesses and how they collaborate. It has a couple of unique features in its ability to look entirely through the building, through the atrium from the south side to the north side. So that on the south side of the building, you're able to see the river, the Red Cedar River, and the whole natural natural rain gardens and other features that have been placed in there. And the objective was to make the building seamless with nature, so that wherever you're at within the building, that you have this connection with the outside, as opposed to just feeling like you're in the building. And it's completed with a huge grand staircase in the middle of the atrium that looks out again over the Red Cedar River. But to further even some of the interesting parts of that design is they incorporated into the design water organisms as part of the art in the entryway. The project what was really unique about this, and ties back to the concept that I was talking about, is that the academic partnership with the facilities management partnership. They got together and they started talking about what were the goals and the vision of the building. And the facilities managers started talking about how do we achieve this goal. And they agreed to use a different contract model, the integrated product delivery model. This is something that our facilities managers had not done, but our researchers had been teaching for some time. So they agreed to use this particular contracting model and to move forward to see how it went and if it would contribute to this building with the vision that they had anticipated. It required substantial more day-to-day communication between both academics and facilities to try something like this together. But the result was this iconic building came in ahead of schedule and under budget and attracted the largest number of donors for one project that the college had ever seen, mainly related to the sustainability aspects that were incorporated. The project manager for facilities said it was really a challenge because he wasn't used to spending that much time on a project and where decisions were being made on the spot in those groups. But as he moved forward, he saw how it was really turning out and how they were able to achieve things so much faster and so much more efficiently. The commissioning of the building, including a month-long period where the contractors were instructing and the facilities management team were instructing all of the operations people within the building on how to use the state-of-the-art building and how to maintain it in a positive way and keep the aspects of sustainability there. The Dean of the College of Business said that the biggest benefit of the collaboration between academics and facilities was the ability for the facilities team to help the academic side to understand the trade-offs involved in the decision-making and the choices. When the trade-offs were presented from the lens of sustainability, it helped them to clarify the path that they would choose in the design of the building. The VP of Infrastructure and Facilities Planning said that the highlights of how the facilities and the colleges can work together to achieve programmatic objectives at the same time of sustainable building, while also incorporating the sustainable principles into the project. It was clear that working together, that they achieved much better outcome than if they had pursued it in a more traditional siloed way. And I think what really culminates this is the comments at the ribbon cutting also reflected the outcome of the mission, that for generations to come, Spartans will transform business while supported by the foundation of the Minskoff Pavilion, and that the pavilion represents a tangible visual representation of the caliber of the Broad College of Business and the student experience at MSU. So this is a good example of how changing the dialogue, working with new partners, and looking at things from a new and different perspective, but really understanding facilities managers, what you do isn't just sustainability of the operations. You lay the foundation for meeting the mission of your organization. And we need to start talking about that role and that's how you do. So the importance of the work you do is seen. Another example is in retrofits of buildings. We're doing major LED light retrofits. We have over 500 buildings. We have about 110 active buildings. Many of them need lighting upgrades. In order to talk about it, we have to not just present the dollars and cents, although the dollars and cents certainly, as you're familiar with, make a good business case. But what it does is it enhances the learning environment for the students. It creates an environment that they will do better at, gives them a better chance of success, and creates a safer atmosphere for them to be in. So we have to bring that human element into the conversation and underscore that the work that you do is not only important from the perspective that you've had, but also is perspective important in the foundation of meeting the mission of the institution or the business and its sustainability goals. And I'll turn it back to our moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, all of our panelists. So we do have some panel questions that we have put together, and we also encourage the audience here. I think we've got at least one question from the audience that's already come in. So I want to tee up the first one here, which is I'm going to actually ask Anik to take the lead on the response. But the first question is, what about businesses that don't see sustainability as a key corporate objective? What role can the facility managers play then? I think you've got some experience in working with existing customers that may not always have that as a high priority.
Thanks, Dean, for the question. I don't know the name of the people who asked this question, but a pleasure to answer. It's always a challenge, and you must, it's, as Amy mentioned, it's a collective education and goal that we need to bring from the leader who are considering that sustainability is not a priority. Honestly, when we looked after the last 5-10 years, huge progress. And huge progress by linking the sustainability with the building industry. The main reason is first, when you have investor, financial market who declare officially that assets who are not sustainable will have no value, immediately you have the market who start to change. Is it what it is? It will be not a perfect word, but it helps. And when you see the CEO of BlackRock, Blackstone, or the CEO who are managing a huge portfolio of assets, it helps. So it's our responsibility to surf and to use this unique opportunity. The second important things, and unfortunately, I was committed to not mentioning the COVID name, but by having the COVID and by having this empty building, the topic about how we consume the building, how we use the space, what is the cost, increase the fact that now, on top of the top 5, top 10 list of priority of the key decision makers, the way that you will manage your strategy, real estate strategy or building strategy is also very clear and visible from the key stakeholders. So we have the combination and the unique opportunity to link these two trends and topic together. Now, for a facility manager, we know that it's hard for you because historically outsourcing, pressure of the cost, etc. But also you have the capability to demonstrate, as I mentioned before, baseline. What is exactly where we are today and what will be the improvement area and how you will be able to contribute. So it's not only you, it's a collective effort and how will I say, courageous position that all the company, including Schneider, Planon, the customer, needs to have front our leader to say, guys, now time to act. And you know what? You will increase the value of your asset. You will increase your return of investment. So it's time to act.
Okay, Peter, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I just adding to what Nick is already saying, there's a strong pull from the investor side. There's a strong pull from the government side on sort of creating legal frameworks around taking sustainability initiative. But I should also add there's a strong pull from the demand side or the user side. And I think, you know, organizations just have to acknowledge that if they want to recruit talent, maybe not so much in my generation, to be honest, but if you want to attract younger generations, sustainability is just part of the equation. So I don't think there's a lot of organizations that can hide away from this, but those that can, I think, you know, to Amy's point, I think we need, as facility managers, we need to act as stewards of the environment. That's a term I've stolen from you, Dean, because I really like that, and we need to educate the organizations to do this in a different way. And then there's actually a lot we can do below the radar. There's a lot of things that we can do that doesn't require permission. We can change plastics. We can change the way we manage water or utilities, energy, and some of these things that doesn't require big investments, that are just things that we can do that actually will drive even cost savings just by working smarter around some of these initiatives. And we don't need to have permission to do that. We don't need permission to shut off the energy or the HVAC system during the night. Now we haven't been able to do that during COVID-19 because of the airflow and the requirements around that. But, you know, once we get back to a more normal state, we can begin to work more intelligently with our building systems and shut down lighting, energy, heating, HVAC, these types of things when people are not using it. And it doesn't require huge investments to do that. We can do that within the confinements of what we already are in charge of.
Thank you. Amy, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Well, I certainly echo what both Peter and Annika have talked about, and that there's movement from many of these other factors that are driving the need to incorporate sustainability in our programs. I think that the finance piece in the activity from BlackRock, but also in the most recent sustainable bonds, where people are tying financing to sustainability performance. And these are companies that are in competition with other companies, that eventually that business competition is going to drive sustainability. The financing is going to drive sustainability, and ultimately the demand of the customer is going to drive sustainability. And Peter, you bring up a good point. There's many, many things that can be done that fall into that context that don't need permission. What I've found is that many, even facilities managers, don't stop to think about, oh, this could be classified as sustainable actions, and we need to help our leadership understand that. Use the word sustainability, because facilities managers are very busy doing everything that they are challenged and tasked to do, creating those efficiencies, reducing the costs, optimizing the operations, and don't stop to think that they really are creating a more sustainable environment. So we have to have that covered, make sure that we incorporate that into the dialogue, and that we help our leadership understand that we're already starting to do it. So this is something that they need to embrace.
Thank you. We've got some questions from the audience, so let's incorporate one of those. The first one we have here is from Omkar Hingmeyer. It says, but what about the present buildings? What about their dependency, as you mentioned, on non-renewable sources? The solutions mentioned can be implemented to current and future projects. So I believe that question came in, Anik, when you were speaking. So it's up on the screen there. Do you have any response to that?
Yes, very short. I think that you're right. It's not the same way that you will manage sustainability goals when you have to retrofit existing building stock. And most of the time, including our company, over the past, we were more focusing on greenfield, new iconic projects. But the most important challenge that we have to tackle on sustainability is existing building stock. The good news is that all the existing and the future digital solution available for starting the journey is agnostic open solution who are able globally. You can potentially find me a case where it will be super challenging, but globally able to start the journey, and not by retrofitting or investing a lot and explaining to our customer that he needs to change 80% of his infrastructure. So only by starting to manage HVAC workload and measuring power monitoring and some key elements who are energy consuming, you can start the journey and start to move your existing building without implementing a full architecture. As you mentioned and as you write, it's sometimes easier when we are thinking about greenfield versus brownfield. Now, it's also a question of tenant. If you want to attract the tenant, if you want to be able to lease this building, you need to have a minimum of services who will be the average of the market. And that's why, again, link to the investor who are managing this building. They know that if they want to reclassify properly their existing building were fantastic 20 or 30 years ago, they need to start the journey. And when I use the example of Calon Pulse, it was simple. We leave or we stay, but we stay if it's a sustainable building. And the investment is not only the tenant who invest, it's a collective investment. Hope I answered. Dean, you are mute.
Sorry about that. Amy, so you must have had some experiences both at the state of Michigan and at Michigan State. A little redundant there, but
Yeah.
what was your experiences with existing buildings and sort of making that transition to off of the fossil fuels?
Actually, most of my background has been in buildings and in the efficiency in buildings. And you have to work up the line and looking at where is the power source. For example, at Michigan State, we're looking at how do we transition the overall power supply and our microgrid for those buildings to incorporating more renewable energy. We're not going to be able to get to 100% renewable energy for a long time, but we're making the biggest dent we can and trying to operationalize the efficiencies in the power generation as much as possible. And then it's working with our public and investment-owned utilities and the state regulations and incorporating portfolio standards, and how are they providing that transformation to renewable energy. So it's optimizing the buildings so that we're using the energy that we have within the buildings in the most efficient ways. Some are appropriate for building solar, some are not. Some areas are appropriate for wind, some are not. In our particular area, we've got land and we're able to put a lot of solar in. We've got one 15 megawatt field in, and we're putting in another 20 megawatt field. So it's looking at a combination of how do you maximize the efficiency of the buildings, and then how do you work with either your local microgrid or your statewide policy in implementing projects that will be able to get you green power to those buildings. And it's a combination of those things that will help us to deal with. From the facilities management perspective, it's figuring out how to absolutely optimize the buildings to the best capabilities that we can. And we have found that a partnership with our utilities has been very important. Even though we're our own microgrid, we do still buy power from the local utilities. And having them being a partner in our retrofit commissioning of our buildings has been really important, because we've been able to share some savings with them at the same time that we're putting many of the upgrades and efficiencies into the buildings. So it's really those public-private partnerships, and then looking statewide at the policy and getting the renewables in place.
Thank you. Peter, what about the technology perspective? What do companies like plan on in their product set? What does that bring to the table in terms of making these transitions?
Well, what we can do is we can connect it and we can measure it and monitor it. So we can help creating sort of the infrastructure for this and help you to make the right decision of creating the baseline that Anique also talked about. And then once you've got the baseline, we can then help you to provide the targets and managing sort of the everything around sustainability, energy consumption, CO2 emissions, water consumption, all that stuff. But I also want to mention, because this is a very, also as Amy and Anique said, this is very regionally, this is a big issue regionally. I'm in the part of the world, in the Nordics, where we have a very large proportion of our energy consumption is coming from renewable energies already, not 100% by far, not 100% at all. But we have that ability to switch over and use the grid and to Amy's point, partner with the utilities provider, the utilities companies, and create that plan of saying, whenever it's possible, whenever it's accessible, you get the renewable energy, and you can even do that without a huge investment or anything like that, because you are able to make that switch on the go. But from time to time, you also have to use old energy sources, and that's just the way it is at this point in time. But I think I think the key is to monitor and measure it, have a plan around this, use the infrastructure to optimize it, and then connect with your utilities provider to see how much of the renewable energy is available in your particular region. What can you do to actually implement this, and what kind of investments are needed to make these types of implementations. And I think the surprise is that if you have the right utilities provider, it doesn't require huge investments typically, depending on, of course, which organization you are. If you are a university campus, maybe it does, but if you're just a normal business and a workplace office environment, some of these things can actually be done fairly simply and not without huge investments in that. So there are opportunities to make some of these changes, and the payback is quite attractive when you make some of these investments. So it's definitely an area to look into.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to go to our third question that we had prepared here, and I'm going to ask Peter to weigh in first. And it's because it is related to the facility manager. Professionally, how does playing a role in sustainability initiatives help a facility manager?
I think I have two aspects to this. Firstly, I just want to put a plug into IFMA's SMP profession, and you can probably elaborate on this a bit further, Dean, because there are educations now, and there are training available to really take a bigger step into this and get educated in terms of doing more and playing a bigger role and be more accurate on your action plans and your initiatives that you want to work with. Secondly, I think we can do a lot, as I mentioned before, and I think it has an important role to play to elevate the FM profession as well, as Amy also said. I mean, I think we have a unique opportunity, and we are right in this inflection point for facility management. I've said before that I believe that the decade we are in now, the 20s, the roaring 20s, is going to be the decade of facility managers, because we have such an input and such we can make a lot of changes in the environment, the sustainability impact, but also user experience and technology and stuff like that. But I think COVID-19 has given us a permission to act on some of these things. So I think we as facility managers also now need to step up to the plate and take the responsibility of driving some of these initiatives forward and linking it into the purpose and the strategy of the business. If we're able to do so, I think that there are no limits to where we can take the profession going forward.
Thank you. We're almost out of time. So Anique and Amy, I'm going to ask you to maybe reply with what would be your top recommendation for a facility manager, and maybe take 15 seconds or so to make that recommendation. Anique, let's lead off.
Start to be an actor. Don't hesitate to ask to all the community and stakeholders who are playing in the building industry to reinforce your message. You have a key role in the sustainability topic and sustainability challenges and climate challenge. So don't be shy, go and be vocal on this sustainability topic. You have a key player role to have.
Thank you. And Amy?
Don't be afraid to think differently about what you do. And don't be afraid to tout your horn, because what you do is very critical to your organization, and you need to help people to understand that. So really think about how you can change the dialogue and underscore the importance and the value that you bring back to the institution or to the business.
Thank you. Well, that is our time. I want to thank the panelists, and for those that questions that we didn't get answered, we'll put those together and get them posted at a later date. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to wrap us up.
Thanks so much, Dean. And yes, I echo that. Thank you to the panelists. It was really great discussion. But most of all, thank you to Schneider Electric and PlanOn, and also you, the audience, for tuning in and participating and sending in those questions. So what we'll do now is we'll update the description after this gets published to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like and hit that subscribe button for more great content like this. Also, that description will update with ESIS has 2 really good reports on climate change that'll be very helpful and kind of relevant to today's discussion. And Schneider Electric has a content collection in IFMA's knowledge library, so be sure to check that out. And lastly, before we go, don't forget Facility Fusion is April 21st and the 22nd. So go to facilityfusion.ifma.org to learn more about that. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.